Hello and welcome to a brand spanking new Flight Simulator video here in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Now, today's video is going to be a warbird, and I do love a good warbird. Last video was on the Flying Iron Spitfire, LF Mark 9 I do believe, and today we're going to the opposite of sleek. We are going to the SAAB B17, not the Boeing B17, but Saab's version. This is part of the Local Legends series of aircraft that Microsoft and Asobos release every now and again. This is the 13th aircraft I believe they've released, and it is the SAAB B17A. Now, I have had a chance to see one of these aircraft for real. Actually turned up at an air show in England. I believe it was Flying Legends, which is at Imperial War Museum, Duxford, and immediately on first seeing this aircraft, it looks different than anything else I'd ever seen. Obviously, this is not a fighter. This is a reconnaissance stroke bomber stroke attack aircraft. And you do notice that because it is quite a large aircraft when compared to a Mustang or a Spitfire or Hurricane or anything of that nature. But what you notice straight away is the fairings on the undercarriage. It's such a unique, wonderfully Saab idea. A little bit of history on the real SAAB B17, if I bring up the old Wikipedia page. Its first flight was in 18th of May 1940, and it's introduced to the Swedish military on March 1942. So this is a World War II aircraft. It was actually retired by Ethiopia in 1968. This aircraft had quite a long service life. There was 326 versions of aircraft built, including the 2 prototypes. What else we got here? Right, so if we want to go with the facts, we have a crew of 2. Power plant was a 14-cylinder air-cooled radial piston engine developing 1,060 horsepower. Maximum speed, 270 miles per hour or 435 kilometers per hour or 235 knots. It's not fast, but it is a bomber light attack aircraft. Weapons-wise, we have, this is for the real version, not for this aircraft in the Flight Simulator, we have 2 fixed-firing 8mm, and this is the first part of the Swedish language I am not even going to come close to trying to translate, but it's a typical Swedish word. But basically we're looking at M1919 Browning AN M2 copy versions of the machine guns. It also had 1 rear cockpit flexible 8mm M1919 Browning AN M2 machine gun. So we had 2 machine guns probably in the wings. I don't think they'd been in the nose, but they would have probably been in the wings, and a rear ventral firing turret or machine gun to protect the rear of the aircraft. Obviously, like I say, we don't have this in the Flight Simulator. Offensive weapons included 700 kilograms or 1,500 pounds of bombs, which could be carried. Racks were provided under the wings and in an internal bomb bay. So once again, you would be able to have racks put under the wings, and we can see the bomb bay just behind the exhaust stacks here. But again, this is Asobos' wonderful idea of having a military aircraft that does not show any signs of being able to carry ordnance. I don't know if I agree with that. You know, it is a warplane, we can't deny that, but, you know, I get not being able to deploy weapons, but it would be nice to be able to show, you know, an aircraft that actually carries the weapons. But like I say, we don't have it. But it is such a wonderfully Saab aircraft, and Asobos did a wonderful job. I do believe it was in cahoots with another Flight Simulator company to make this aircraft. It is absolutely wonderful. Aesthetically, externally speaking, it is very, very good. Moving on to the inside, it is, let's just turn the track IR on. There we go. So it is quite well done. I mean, we're not talking A2A levels here of realism. It sounds really, really good. All the bits and pieces that you really do need to work. But yeah, it's not a bad aircraft at the moment. It is a very, very good, and it's unique. That's the great thing about it, is we can always have Spitfires and Mustangs and P40s. I mean, how many P40s does the Flight Simulator have? But this is the only, at the moment, SAAB B17, and certainly the only B17 in Flight Simulator until somebody releases the American version. So, where are we? We are back at RAF Waddington. We are sat across from the hangars. Runway's just across our right-hand side. In fact, the A15 is somewhere back over that side, if you know the area. What we're going to do is going to take off from RAF Waddington, and we're going to fly a little bit of a, not a display too much. You can't really do too much with a light attack aircraft, but we will do a couple of passes over Waddington, head back over Lincoln, and we're going to fly into RAF Scampton. No need to set up a GPS, the aircraft doesn't come with one. So we're going to be flying this from memory, which is going to be, shall we say, interesting. I'm not going to go into the pronunciations of wonderful Swedish words because, well, I can't. And whenever I think of Sweden, I think of the Swedish chef from the Muppets, weirdly. So, is there any issues with this aircraft? Yes, it does actually have. There's one issue I do know. Some of the levers respond in the opposite. This one here, I believe, is a fuel lever. You have to click it so that the arrow is down for it to respond and move the lever up. You would assume that the arrow should be in the positive if you want the lever to go up. Same if you're using the mouse wheel, you have to scroll down to make that lever go up. It's, you only use it once at the start of the to start the aircraft, and obviously to shut the aircraft down. Like I say, I do believe it's a fuel system. I'm not going to go, if I can zoom in, into pronouncing Swedish words. Yes, it does come all Swedish. I don't think there's any way of translating it into English, and to be quite frank with you, you really shouldn't, due to the fact of it is a Swedish aircraft. Look at the 3 crowns on the wings to know that. So, before we get started, if navigation-wise, we only have these instruments down here, which is a transponder and a rough radio system. I don't know whether the real aircraft would have this particular configuration. Obviously, it would have its own version. Instrumentation is typically Swedish. It is slightly confusing. The ones I pay attention to the most, we have a speedometer here. Obviously, the colours are what you need to be paying attention to. Obviously, red we do not go into, but we will be sitting around the blue and into the green area for today's flight. We have an altimeter, slip indicator is there, climb and dive indicator, that is very important as well. We've got the basics here. It is, like I say, a version of a Warbird. Another slight negative, I've got to say it's a negative because I don't think this is how it would be in real. This is the cowl flap lever. You crank it round and you would open up the cowl flaps on the engine, which is what you would need to do to start the engine up and to run it on the ground to get the maximum amount of airflow into the engine. And it's ridiculously slow. I will show it. Come on, you click over it, hold it, and that's the speed it goes at. And it only just starts to open up the cowl flaps. I can't believe for any instant that the real SAAB B17 has cowl flaps that are this slow. But that is as fast as you'll make the little handle go round. So what we're going to do is we'll open them to that level and we're going to leave them right there. Obviously, like I say, it's not realistic. There isn't like airflow indicated over the cowl flaps to slow the aircraft down, because these would cause a drag effect on the aircraft. It's not that realistic, but we will leave them open. Obviously, temperatures aren't really that much modelled. So we'll open up the side window. And we shall get ready to start the aircraft. So we shall have prop pitch all the way forward. Mixture is going to be set. This is the interesting part. This is what I call the de Havilland mixture setting. Believe it or not, that is full rich mixture. If you shut the mixture all the way off, it goes the opposite way to what you would expect. I bet that caught out a few people on the flight simulator. The reason why I call it de Havilland approach is I remember the Tiger Moth has the same configuration, and it caught me out a few times on FSX. So de Havilland, thank you very much for doing that. So let's put the fuel system, if I could just find that, into the first one, which we need. We shall prime the engine. Obviously, again, it does the job, but that's not quite how quick the real version would be. Mags onto M2, M1+2. Hopefully we got the brakes set. And we got a rather interesting start sequence for this aircraft. So we shall start the aircraft up. And we have a good start. Turn on track IR. Make sure that's set up properly. We'll turn on the navigation. Like I say, we're not going to need it. Squawking 7000, so we are GA traffic. So we'll have the flaps set to one stage. Very nice sounding aircraft. So we'll be turning out to the right here, going down the taxiway. We will track back towards the runway and we shall get going. Making sure everything works. Doesn't need a lot to get this aircraft to taxi out. I've actually shut the throttle down and the aircraft is quite happy to taxi. Using rudder inputs to actually steer the aircraft. It is a very easy aircraft to steer and taxi on the ground. You know, there are some warbirds that do suffer from visibility issues just because of the fact that there is a nose stuck in the air, but as long as you know where you're going, this aircraft's quite easy. Like I say, having a pleasure to actually see this aircraft in real at a Flying Legends air show. It is a very unique looking aircraft. Mainly because of the undercarriage, and even when it's folded away, you've got the two massive legs protruding underneath the wings. So before we'll get onto the runway, shut the window. has got some really, really nice sounds. When we retract the undercarriage, you will hear it thump up into the wings, which, you know, for an aircraft of this price range is actually really, really good. I have seen aircraft costing a lot more money and not being up to scratch. Sounds are very important, especially in a warbird. So I'm going to leave my sunglasses taken off into the sun. So, typical takeoff approach will be to rev the engine up on the brakes, probably about 20% to check that everything is running smoothly. Brakes will be released and we will start running down the runway. We will be running the throttle up to around 75–80%. By that point, getting the tail off the ground, letting the aircraft settle on its main undercarriage and gently pulling back. Remember, this is not a Spitfire, this is a heavy aircraft, and as such responds in the same way. So once we get airborne, settle the aircraft down, retract the undercarriage, and start trimming for normal flight. So prop pitch is set, mixture is set, flaps are set one stage, obviously gear is down and locked. Coming off the brakes, sitting on the wheel brakes. %, let the engine settle. Coming off the brakes. Using the rudder to keep the aircraft relatively straight. Tail is up. There's about 80%. Gently pull back on the stick and we are airborne. Positive rate gear up. So the legs disappear underneath the wings. And there's that little thud, just telling you the undercarriage is retracted. Flaps coming up. Just gently throttling back now and putting back the prop pitch, putting the mixture into auto lean, I believe that would be, and retrimming the aircraft out. You do have to trim this aircraft quite a lot. Speed is just shy of 300 kilometers. Like I say, we're not a Spitfire, we don't have to go too fast. I'm not going to bother shutting the cowl flaps. Not the most realistic dial in the world. I can't believe that the cowl flaps will be that slow in reality. But we're going to make a couple of passes here over Waddington, just retrimming the aircraft out. currently using the Aki Season scenery pack, so obviously all the trees are now in the autumn colours. Ground textures also change. The fields look awfully autumn-like. Like I say, this is not a Spitfire, it is a TAC aircraft stroke light bomber, so it behaves like one, it feels heavy. Always having to retrim the aircraft out for specific manoeuvres and specific speed ranges. I don't know whether it's my control settings. I have been dabbling with changing curves and whatnot, but the rudder is very, very effective. It's a largish rudder surface, but it really does feel very, very effective. They got last pass for Waddington before heading over towards Scampton. Like I said at the start of the video, this aircraft is part of the Legends pack released by Microsoft and Asobos. Usually after a sim update, they release as part of the update a particular aircraft they want to champion. Now, I've not really been too fussed about the Legends pack. I do have the Caribou and the ATR. I haven't flown the ATR yet. I don't know why I got it, but I haven't flown it. But when this aircraft was announced, I was like, you know something? I've just got to get this aircraft. It is such a lovely looking, unique looking aircraft. And like I say, I do love a good warbird. I like the Spitfires, I like the Mustangs and everything. This is a different style of warbird. It's relaxing. If you keep an eye on the trim, you keep an eye on the speed, you know that it's going to be a heavy aircraft in the turns. It's a very, very good aircraft. Lincoln to our right, just underneath our right wing. flying this aircraft by eyesight and memory, and Scampton's runway is in sight. Just going to our 1 o'clock stroke 2 o'clock now. So we're going to enter a left-hand spiral decline. We're going to make a couple of passes over Scampton. Doesn't take long to get to Scampton from Warrington, which is really at the end of the city. Navigation-wise, equipment, yeah, you're not looking for GTN 750s in this aircraft. You can obviously turn on the VFR map, but that's part of the flight simulator, not part of the aircraft. And like I said at the start, you know, the aircraft is capable of squawking, in this case 7,000, and we do have a rough radio indicator down there. But obviously, I don't know whether the real aircraft would have that. Obviously, it would have a radio, but you would be probably flying this aircraft with a map. Certainly a beautiful day for a flight. As we go over RAF Scampton. Just got to remember, this is a heavy aircraft. You know, don't be doing anything silly with it. Think about speed settings, the speed itself, before doing any serious maneuvers. Rule of thumb, keep the speedometer in the green and you'll be alright for basic maneuvers like this. We'll make one more pass and enter the downwind for landing. I always like seeing what aircraft are going to be released next in Flight Simulator, and as much as I like the jets, I do like a good warbird. I like an aircraft with a propeller on the front. You can see something actually working. So, entering the landing phase, mixture is going to full rich. Flaps are coming down one stage. That's bleeding the speed off, or retrimming the aircraft. Obviously, remember, when you put the undercarriage down in this aircraft, it will kill your speed. So we're going to enter a left-hand turn, gear coming down. Satisfactory thud when gear is down. Have the airfield to 10 o'clock. Airspeed has gone into the blue, so we're good for an approach. Nice long runway at Scampton, so don't have to worry about that. Constantly having to retrim the aircraft out. That undercarriage has a real effect. Even though the fairings are on the undercarriage legs, it still has quite an effect at drag. Typical tail dragger issue. As soon as you start to get to approaching the runway, you do tend to lose sight of it, so always remember, don't chop the throttle either, because it will take a bit to get this aircraft going again. Down the ground. Just using the rudder to kick the aircraft back over. Bit windy. Well, I would say a bit windy. The windsock doesn't say that, but welcome to RAF Scampton. Flaps coming up. Mixture set back, don't want full pitch on the ground. Just hearing that radial engine, it's so nice. Sounds like an absolute bag of bolts, but like most radial engines. So, what's my final thoughts on the SAAB B17? What role does this aircraft fit in the flight simulator? Well, it is a Legend. So, it fits the Legend pack that Microsoft release. It is unique, definitely unique. Is it worth its money? I actually think so. It's not on the level of Flying Iron Spitfire, for instance, but it's not far. Sounds good, external looks are good, internal looks are good, handling is what you'd expect from a light attack stroke bomber, i.e. it is heavy on the controls. Is it an aircraft you could fly point to point? You could. Like I say, there is no GPS with the aircraft, only the one that, you know, you press the V key, I believe, and the Microsoft One version pops up. So, Max 12. Mixture shutdown. Pop it off. Battery off. Pocket brakes off. So yes, this thing down here, that is an issue. The fuel lever down here, the orange lever to the left, it responds, like I say, in the reverse. But you know, it's not bad. Obviously, there's little things like that. Whether Asobos will fix that, I don't know. But this aircraft is very well done. Like I say, not on the levels of the Flying Iron Spitfire, which I would say would probably be one of the better all-rounder warbirds out there for Flight Simulator, but this aircraft is good. And if you want something that looks a little bit different, I don't think you can find many warbirds that look much different than the SAAB B17. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informative. If you would be very kind if you put a little like on this video. I don't normally go for likes and things like that. It's still very early days for the channel, but I want to try and grow this channel as much as I can. And if I get likes, then I know that the content is what you guys are actually liking. So yeah, if you like it, put a like on it, put a comment on the video. If you don't, so be it. Put that down as well. It's the only way I kind of learn. So I will see you guys in the future in a new Microsoft Flight Simulator video.